All right, joining me now, Rick Perry, former Energy Secretary, former Governor of Texas. Rick Perry, great to see you, Mr. Secretary, Captain Perry. I just had this thought. Wouldn't it be easier and better, instead of negotiating with Venezuela or Iran for, a couple of hundred barrels of oil, wouldn't it be better to have a diplomatic initiative for the American oil patch for our fossil fuel industry? Biden could open up negotiations there. He could send the State Department, the Defense Department, FERC, who knows? What do you think about that?
He could have an envoy to Midland.
Yes.
Yeah, a good move. You're the special envoy to Midland, Texas. In all seriousness, Larry, this is a maddening thing to watch and to listen to if you're an American who is being affected by what's happening economically in the United States, notwithstanding what's going on halfway around the world, and certainly what's happening in Ukraine is a travesty, and the United States needs to be doing more, as does the NATO allies, into protecting those individuals from Putin and what he's doing. But the idea that the United States is going to Venezuela to work out a deal with a madman, working with the Ayatollahs in Iran. I mean, literally, those are madmen. And I think I said on another program that when you deal with the madman, it's not a good look. And if you deal with them too much and too often, you become a madman as well. So I think the Biden administration is right on the verge of appearing to be madmen, to be out of control, to say one thing and then have your administration do something completely different. When the president of the United States stands up and talks about what he's going to do to lower the cost of gasoline, the cost of living, that transportation cost is having an impact with, it is in direct conflict with what his administration is doing. Whether it is with offshore leases, whether it is with federal lands, whether it is with LNG permits that are sitting there waiting to be authorized, all of that would send a message to the financial markets. We deal in futures markets here. I think most people recognize that. If they don't, this market is driven by things way out into the future. It's going to take a year for us to get the drilling rigs going and producing more oil, but the message that we could be headed in that direction would substantially quieten these markets down, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The Wall Street Journal editorial talked about that this morning, but I think you're dead right about that. Any movement in favor of oil and gas. But here's the thing. Biden and his press secretary, Psaki, are sort of making fun. They've got 9,000 federal leases, blah, blah, blah. What do they need? An embroidered invitation, which I've never seen embroidered invitation, but whatever. Here's the thing. If you're going to work on private lands, and I, ask you to put your energy secretary hat on, suppose you're working on private lands, so not federal lands, private lands, but they are still stopping them out with these various, social cost of carbon, endangered species, NEPA. In other words, they can invoke, Rick, a lot of regulations to stop private development, which is exactly what they're doing. And somebody today told me, FERC is never going to let another pipeline. That's what they're saying. And a lot of producers, potential producers, well, if they can't have broader access to pipelines, they're not going to develop oil and gas. So you're kind of stuck. And I don't think, Biden, he's either in denial about that or he just doesn't understand it.
Well, Larry, I think he understands it. I think he is still driven by the woke left, the climate worshipers in the Democrat Party and in this country that still have his ear. He is probably giving them a little wink and a nod and say, hey, look, I need to say some things to try to have some sensibility about whether or not we can stay in power. But his administration is not going to do anything except fight fossil fuels. Gavin Newsom gave a speech where he talked about calling the oil and gas industry petro-dictators.
No.
The Democrat leadership in this country hates fossil fuels, and my instinct is they hate them so much that they don't care whether the average American has to pay $6 or $7. Well, we're already paying $6, $7 or $8 a gallon for gasoline. They don't care if your food prices go up. They are praying at the altar of this climate, and be damned with the rest of you if you have to pay a price for that.
I mean, they're using, just to dwell on this last point, they're using the regulatory octopus to stop private development of oil and gas. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a false, this 9,000 lease thing for federal lands. I mean, that's just a phony distraction, red herring. They are stopping private development. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, and the banking industry is right at the core of it. The central bank basically working in conjunction with some of these woke corporate types at the financial institutions who basically are in cabal, if you will, and sending the message of we are going to be financing renewable type projects, and that's it. Yep. If you are fossil fuel focused, if you have fossil fuels in your portfolio, well, we're going to take a really hard look at that. And then that's even before you get into the regulatory world, whether it's FERC, whether it's the Department of Interior, whether it's EPA, all of these other agencies of government that can make life miserable for you. The oil and gas industry understands that.
Yes, sir.
If you give them a signal of, listen, we're not going to overtax you, overregulate you, or overlitigate you, they will go to work and they will deliver fossil fuels that we need in this country for our economic side of it. But I will suggest to you, just as importantly, for our national defense, Larry.
Yep, security issue. You're right. Governor Rick Perry, thank you, sir. We appreciate it, as always.